The assembled court of the Zyrathian Empire held its collective breath as Queen Velsara examined the battle armor before her. The ceremonial hall, carved from living crystal that pulsed with bioluminescent veins, had never been so silent. Even the atmospheric processors seemed to quiet their hum. Elsa stood among the other military engineers, her heart hammering against her ribs. The armor in question, a masterwork of Zyrathian nanotechnology worth more than a small planet, had been damaged in the recent skirmish with the Krell Dominion. It had been assigned to her repair bay purely by random rotation. She'd spent 72 hours working on it, fueled by stimulants and stubbornness, determined to prove that humanity deserved its place among the star-faring species. The Queen's 6 primary eyes narrowed, their violet irises contracting to pinpoints. Her crystalline exoskeleton caught the light, scattering rainbow fractals across the assembled crowd. When she spoke, her voice resonated through the translation implants every species wore. "This armor," Velsara began, her tone careful, measured, "has been restored beyond its original specifications. The quantum mesh has been rewoven with a pattern I've never seen. The energy distribution nodes are operating at 117% efficiency. The molecular bonding," she paused, one of her 4 arms tracing the shoulder plate. "It's flawless, perfect, impossible." Elsa felt sweat bead on her forehead. She'd improvised, yes, human metallurgy techniques combined with Zyrathian nanotech in ways the manuals explicitly warned against. But it had worked. The simulations had been clear. "Who repaired this armor?" the Queen asked. The head of the engineering corps, a hulking Bronthar named Kextal, stepped forward. His translator crackled. "Your Radiance, the repair was logged to Bay 17. The engineer assigned was. I want them here now." Elsa's supervisor, a nervous Pelaxian named Kyric, turned to her with his 3 eyes wide. His skin had paled to a sickly yellow-green. "You need to step forward," he whispered through their private comm channel. "The Queen doesn't like to wait." Elsa's legs felt like they'd been filled with liquid metal. Around her, the other engineers, veteran technicians from a dozen species with centuries of combined experience, were all carefully avoiding looking in her direction. She took a breath, squared her shoulders, and stepped out from the crowd. The walk to the center of the hall felt like crossing a desert. Every eye in the chamber tracked her movement. Elsa was acutely aware of how small she was, how young. At 26, she was barely considered an adult by human standards, practically an infant to species that lived for centuries. She stopped before the Queen and executed the proper bow, a human gesture, since her body couldn't manage the complex Zyrathian salute. "You," Velsara leaned down, bringing her massive head level with Elsa's. Up close, the Queen was even more imposing. She stood nearly 3 meters tall, and her presence filled the space like a gravity well. A human did this. "Yes, your Radiance," Elsa managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Engineer 3rd Class Elsa Chen, assigned to repair Bay 17. "Impossible," said a voice from the council platform. Ambassador Thexron, a Zyrathian military commander whose battle honors could fill a library. "Humans have been part of the Alliance for barely 50 years. Their metallurgical understanding is primitive. Their grasp of quantum mechanics is elementary at best." The Queen held up one hand, silencing him. "Explain," she said to Elsa. "How did you achieve this?" Elsa's mind raced. She could lie, minimize her role, but something in the Queen's gaze told her that would be a fatal mistake. Velsara hadn't survived 5 centuries of ruling through deception. She wanted truth. "Your Radiance, I used a hybrid technique," Elsa began. "Zyrathian nanotech is extraordinarily sophisticated, but it follows rigid programming parameters. When the armor was damaged, the nanobots attempted to repair themselves using their standard protocols, but the damage was too severe. They'd locked into a failure loop." "We're aware of the technical difficulties," Velsara said dryly. 3 of our master engineers examined it and declared it irreparable. Continue. I realized the nanobots needed a different framework. Human steel forging, ancient techniques from Earth, actually relies on understanding how molecular structures respond to stress. We've been working with crude materials for millennia, learning to coax metal into shapes it doesn't naturally want to hold. Elsa's confidence grew as she spoke about her work. I reprogrammed a subset of the nanobots to follow a more organic pattern, like annealing steel but at a quantum level. I let them explore multiple solution paths simultaneously, instead of following one predetermined sequence. The hall erupted in murmurs. Thexron's face darkened. At least, his bioluminescent patterns shifted to what Elsa had learned indicated anger. That should have caused cascade failure, another engineer called out. The nanobots would have created conflicting repair matrices. They did at first, Elsa admitted. I had to run the process 47 times, adjusting parameters each time. The first 30 attempts ended in complete failure, but I noticed patterns in the failures, learned what the nanobots could tolerate. By the 47th iteration, they'd essentially evolved a new repair protocol. Velsara straightened, all 4 arms coming together in a gesture Elsa didn't recognize. The queen was silent for a long moment, and Elsa wondered if she just admitted to some terrible crime. Had she violated some sacred Zyrathian principle, broken an alliance regulation she'd never heard of? Then Velsara did something that made every being in the chamber freeze. She laughed. It wasn't a human laugh. It resonated at frequencies that made Elsa's bones vibrate, but it was unmistakably amusement, joy even. 47 attempts, the queen repeated. Do you know what we would have done after the 3rd failure? Reported it as irreparable, your radiance. Precisely. Velsara turned to address the hall, her voice carrying to every corner. This human child succeeded where our masters failed because she has something we've forgotten. Not superior technology, not advanced knowledge. She looked back at Elsa. Stubbornness, human stubbornness. Before Elsa could process that, she heard footsteps behind her. Heavy, measured, distinctly human. She turned and her heart stopped. Adam Reeves walked toward her from the shadows of the entrance corridor, and he wasn't alone. Behind him marched a full honor guard of human marines, their powered armor gleaming, weapons ceremonially deactivated but present. Adam was the human representative to the Alliance Council, a position he'd held for only 2 years but had transformed through sheer force of will. He was 40, silver threading through his dark hair, with the kind of face that had seen too much but refused to look away. Elsa had met him exactly once during her orientation, and he'd terrified her with his intensity. He stopped beside her, stood at attention, and met the queen's gaze without flinching. "Your radiance," Adam said, his voice calm. "I apologize for the interruption, but I needed to be present for this." "Ambassador Reeves," Velsara's tone was unreadable, "you knew about this." "I learned of it 3 hours ago, as soon as the repair was logged for royal inspection." Adam glanced at Elsa, and she saw something in his eyes: pride, relief. Engineer Chen didn't break any regulations, if that's your concern. She pushed boundaries, yes, but she didn't cross lines. "I'm aware," Velsara said. "I've already reviewed the full technical report. My question is different." She looked between them. "Why did you come, Ambassador? This is a matter for engineers and military staff, not diplomats." Adam's jaw tightened. "Because, your radiance, humanity is still on trial in this alliance. Every time one of us does something unexpected, there are those who question whether we belong here." He didn't look at Thexron, but the implication was clear. "I wanted to make sure that Engineer Chen's achievement was recognized for what it is, a breakthrough that benefits everyone, not a violation to be punished." The silence that followed was profound. Elsa could hear her own heartbeat, could feel the weight of history pressing down on this moment. Velsara descended from her throne, each step making the crystal floor ring like a bell. She approached until she stood directly before both humans, forcing them to crane their necks to meet her gaze. 50 years ago, the Queen said softly, when humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel and discovered they weren't alone in the universe, we debated whether to make contact. Some argued humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable, too young. Others said you were too fragile, that the shock of meeting us would destroy your civilization. Her eyes fixed on Elsa. I voted to make contact because I saw something in your species' history. You don't give up. You fail and fail and fail, and then you try one more time. She reached out with one massive hand and gently touched Elsa's shoulder. The gesture was awkward. Zyrathian anatomy wasn't designed for it, but unmistakable in its meaning. 47 attempts, Velsara repeated. This is why humanity will not just survive in the Alliance. You will thrive. You will teach us to be better. She withdrew her hand and raised her voice to address the hall. Engineer Chen's technique will be studied and integrated into standard repair protocols. She is hereby promoted to Engineer First Class and will be assigned to the Royal Innovation Corps. Elsa's knees nearly buckled. The Innovation Corps was where the Alliance's greatest minds worked on projects that shaped the future of entire civilizations. Furthermore, Velsara continued, Ambassador Reeves, your presence here today shows the same quality your engineer displayed, the refusal to abandon your people when they need you. Humanity's provisional alliance status is hereby ended. You are full members with all rights and responsibilities therein. The hall erupted, some in celebration, some in protest, but the Queen's word was law. Adam turned to Elsa, and for the first time since she'd known him, he smiled. Well done, Engineer Chen. I just fixed some armor, sir, Elsa whispered, still in shock. No, Adam said, glancing up at the Queen, who was already being swarmed by counselors and advisors. You proved that we belong here. That's worth more than you can imagine. As they left the hall together, human and alien eyes watching them, Elsa realized that her 47 attempts hadn't just repaired armor. They'd repaired something far more fragile, humanity's place among the stars. And it had all started with one simple question: who repaired this armor? The answer had changed everything.